Hey, it's Tommy. Let me tell you something that could save you $10,000 or more over the life of your car. After 35 years of tearing apart engines, rebuilding them from scratch, and watching people make the same mistakes over and over again, I finally decided to put together everything I know about keeping an engine alive for as long as humanly possible. We're talking about engines that hit 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles, and some that push past 500,000 without ever needing a major rebuild. And here's the thing most people don't realise: those engines didn't survive because they were special, or because their owners got lucky. They survived because someone did 15 simple things that most drivers completely ignore. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what those 15 things are, and if you actually follow them, your engine will outlast almost every other car on the road. So let's get into it. Number 15. Change your oil before the manual tells you to. Here's what manufacturers don't want you to know: that 10,000 mile oil change interval they print in your owner's manual isn't designed to make your engine last forever. It's designed to make the car look low maintenance so you'll buy it. Marketing departments love those long intervals because they make ownership seem cheap and easy. But ask any mechanic who's actually opened up engines with 200,000 miles on them, and they'll tell you the same thing. The cars that follow those extended intervals are full of sludge, worn bearings, and timing chain problems. The ones that changed oil every 5,000 miles or less look almost new inside. Modern synthetic oils are incredible, but they still break down over time, especially if you do a lot of short trips, sit in traffic, or live somewhere hot or dusty. Those conditions are called severe service, and most people drive under severe conditions without even knowing it. My recommendation is simple. If you're running full synthetic, change it every 5,000 to 7,000 miles. If you're using conventional oil in an older car, stick to 3,000 miles, and always replace the filter at the same time, because a clogged filter can starve your engine of oil pressure faster than you'd believe. This one habit alone can add 100,000 miles to your engine's life. Number 14. Let your engine warm up the right way. I see people make two big mistakes when it comes to warming up their engines. The first mistake is letting the car idle for 10 or 15 minutes before driving, thinking that's somehow good for the engine. The second mistake is starting the car and immediately flooring it out of the driveway. Both of these will shorten your engine's life, and here's why. When your engine is cold, the oil is thick and sitting at the bottom of the oil pan. It takes about 30 seconds for oil pressure to build, and for that oil to reach all the critical parts at the top of your engine, like the camshafts, valve train, and turbocharger if you have one. If you rev the engine hard before that oil gets where it needs to go, you're creating metal-on-metal contact that wears down your bearings and cylinder walls. But extended idling isn't the answer either. When an engine idles, it doesn't generate enough heat to burn off the fuel vapours and moisture that build up inside. That moisture mixes with oil and creates acids that eat away at your engine from the inside. The right approach is to start your car, let it idle for about 30 to 60 seconds, and then drive gently for the first 5 to 10 minutes. Keep the RPMs below 3,000 until your temperature gauge starts to climb. This lets everything warm up evenly and gets your oil flowing without causing unnecessary wear. Number 13. Never ignore your cooling system. I've rebuilt more engines destroyed by overheating than almost any other cause. When an engine overheats, even once, it can warp the cylinder head, crack the engine block, blow the head gasket, and cause damage that costs thousands of dollars to repair. And the scary part is that cooling system failures often happen without warning. One day your car's running fine, and the next day you're on the side of the road, with steam pouring out from under the hood. Your coolant breaks down over time and becomes acidic, which corrodes your radiator, water pump, and heater core from the inside. Most manufacturers recommend flushing and replacing coolant every 5 years, or 100,000 miles for modern long-life coolants. But if you're running older green coolant, you should do it every 2 to 3 years, or around 60,000 miles. Check your coolant level regularly and look for signs of leaks, rust-coloured fluid, or a sweet smell coming from your engine bay. Replace your thermostat if your temperature gauge starts acting strange, because a stuck thermostat can cause overheating in minutes. And inspect your radiator hoses for cracks, bulges, or soft spots every time you change your oil. A $5 hose can save you a $5,000 engine. Number 12. Change your transmission fluid before it's too late. Here's a secret the dealerships don't want you to know. When they call transmission fluid lifetime fluid, they're not talking about your car's lifetime. They're talking about the warranty period. After that, they don't care if your transmission fails because you'll either buy a new car or pay them $4,000 for a rebuild. Transmission fluid does an incredible amount of work. It lubricates gears, cools the transmission, and provides the hydraulic pressure that makes shifting possible. Over time, that fluid breaks down from heat and collects tiny metal particles from normal wear. Once it degrades enough, it stops protecting your transmission, and that's when you start feeling rough shifts, slipping gears, and eventually complete failure. My advice is to drain and refill your transmission fluid every 60,000 miles for automatic transmissions and every 30,000 to 60,000 miles for manuals. Don't do a full flush if the fluid has never been changed and the car has high mileage, because that can dislodge debris and cause more problems. And always use the exact fluid your manufacturer specifies, because mixing in universal fluid often leads to problems down the road. Number 11. Replace your timing belt or inspect your timing chain. This is the one that scares me the most because when it fails, it usually destroys the entire engine. Your timing belt or timing chain keeps your camshafts and crankshafts synchronized so that your valves open and close at exactly the right moment. If that belt snaps or that chain stretches too far, your pistons and valves collide at high speed, and that's the end of your engine. Most timing belts need to be replaced every 60,000 to 100,000 miles depending on your vehicle. But here's what the manual doesn't tell you. Timing belts also age with time, not just mileage. I've seen belts with only 40,000 miles snap because they were 7 or 8 years old and the rubber had dried out and cracked. If your car has a timing belt and it's more than 6 years old, get it inspected regardless of mileage. When you replace the belt, always replace the tensioner, idler pulleys, and water pump at the same time because they wear together, and failing to replace them means you'll be paying for the same labour twice. If your car has a timing chain, it should last longer, but chains stretch over time and can cause timing problems and rough running. Listen for a rattling noise at startup, which often indicates a worn chain or tensioner. Number 10. Keep your air filter clean and your engine breathing. Your engine needs 3 things to run: fuel, spark, and air. If any of those are restricted, performance suffers and wear increases. The air filter is your engine's first line of defense against dirt, dust, and debris that would otherwise get sucked into your cylinders and grind away at your piston rings and cylinder walls. A clogged air filter restricts airflow, which makes your engine work harder, burn more fuel, and run hotter. Most manufacturers recommend replacing your engine air filter every 12,000 to 15,000 miles, but that interval can be much shorter if you drive on dirt roads, in dusty conditions, or in heavy traffic. I check my air filter every time I change my oil, and I recommend you do the same. Hold it up to the light. If you can't see light passing through, it's time for a new one. Don't waste money on those fancy oiled performance filters unless you're actually racing, because they can let more dirt through than a quality paper filter, and if you over-oil them, that oil can contaminate your mass airflow sensor. Number 9. Flush your brake fluid every 2 to 3 years. You might be wondering what brake fluid has to do with engine longevity, and here's the answer. If your brakes fail, you're not going to be driving that engine anywhere. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air over time. Fresh DOT3 brake fluid has a boiling point around 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and DOT4 is even higher at around 446 degrees. But as moisture accumulates, that boiling point drops dramatically, sometimes below 300 degrees. When brake fluid boils during hard braking, it creates air bubbles in the lines, and suddenly your brake pedal goes soft and you lose stopping power. Beyond safety, that moisture also causes corrosion inside your brake calipers, wheel cylinders, and ABS module, leading to expensive repairs. The fix is simple. Flush your brake fluid every 2 to 3 years regardless of mileage. You can buy a cheap brake fluid tester that measures moisture content, and if it reads above 3%, it's time for a flush. Always use the correct DOT rating for your vehicle, and never mix different types of brake fluid. Number 8. Clean your mass airflow sensor regularly. The mass airflow sensor sits between your air filter and your engine, and it measures exactly how much air is entering so your computer can calculate the right amount of fuel to inject. When this sensor gets dirty, which happens gradually from dust, oil vapors, and contamination, it sends incorrect readings to your engine computer. The result is poor fuel economy, rough idling, hesitation during acceleration, and sometimes a check engine light with codes like P0101 or P0104. The good news is that cleaning it takes about 10 minutes and costs less than $10. Remove the sensor from the air intake tube, spray it with a dedicated mass airflow sensor cleaner like CRC MAF cleaner, and let it air dry completely before reinstalling. Never touch the delicate sensing wires with your fingers or anything else, and never use carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner because they can damage the sensor. I clean my mass airflow sensor every 12,000 to 15,000 miles, and I recommend you do the same. Number 7. Replace your spark plugs before they cause expensive damage. Spark plugs seem like such a small, cheap part that most people forget about them until something goes wrong. But worn spark plugs can cause a chain reaction of problems that end up costing thousands of dollars. When a spark plug wears out, the spark becomes weak and inconsistent. That leads to incomplete combustion, misfires, and unburned fuel entering your exhaust system. That unburned fuel can destroy your catalytic converter, which costs anywhere from $500 to $2,000 to replace. I've seen $60 worth of worn spark plugs lead to $3,000 in damage. Most modern iridium or platinum spark plugs are rated for 60,000 to 100,000 miles, but I recommend checking them at 60,000 regardless of what the manufacturer says. Turbo engines and direct injection engines tend to wear plugs faster due to higher combustion pressures and carbon buildup. When you replace spark plugs, use quality brands like NGK, Denso, or the OEM plugs specified for your vehicle. Avoid cheap copper plugs unless your car specifically requires them. Number 6. Replace your PCV valve before it destroys your seals. The PCV valve, which stands for positive crankcase ventilation, is a small part that controls pressure inside your engine. As your engine runs, combustion gases leak past the piston rings into the crankcase. The PCV valve routes those gases back into the intake to be burned, which keeps pressure from building up inside the engine. When the PCV valve fails, pressure builds up and starts pushing oil past seals and gaskets. You'll notice increased oil consumption, blue smoke from the exhaust, oil leaks around valve, covers, and a rough idle. Ignore it long enough and you can blow out expensive seals that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars to replace. Most PCV valves should be replaced every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, and the part itself costs between $10 and $20. Replacing it takes about 5 minutes on most vehicles. Check the hose connected to it as well, because cracked or collapsed hoses cause the same problems as a failed valve. Number 5. Change your fuel filter on schedule. Your fuel filter catches dirt, rust, and debris before they can reach your fuel injectors and engine. Over time, that filter gets clogged, which restricts fuel flow and makes your fuel pump work harder. A clogged fuel filter causes hesitation, poor acceleration, stalling under load, and eventually fuel pump failure. Fuel pumps are expensive, often costing $300 to $800 including labor. A fuel filter costs $20 to $50. The math is simple. Most vehicles need a new fuel filter every 30,000 to 60,000 miles, though some modern cars have filters inside the fuel tank that are designed to last longer. If you drive in dusty conditions, use lower quality fuel, or tow frequently, change it more often. Always use OEM or name brand filters from companies like Bosch, Motorcraft, or AC Delco, because cheap filters can break down from ethanol exposure and release fibers into your fuel system. Number 4. Inspect and replace your serpentine belt before it snaps. The serpentine belt drives your alternator, power steering pump, air conditioning compressor, and sometimes your water pump. If it breaks while you're driving, you lose all of those systems at once. Your battery dies, your steering becomes extremely heavy, and if the belt drives your water pump, your engine can overheat within minutes. Most serpentine belts last between 50,000 and 100,000 miles, but like timing belts, they also age with time. Rubber degrades from heat, oil exposure, and ozone in the air. I recommend inspecting your serpentine belt every oil change and replacing it every 60,000 miles or 6 years, whichever comes first. Look for cracks, fraying, glazing on the underside, or chunks missing from the ribs. When you replace the belt, also replace the belt tensioner if it has more than 75,000 miles on it, because a weak tensioner causes belt slippage and premature wear. Number 3. Use top-tier fuel and avoid cheap gas stations. Not all gasoline is created equal. Top-tier fuel contains higher levels of detergent additives that keep your fuel injectors, intake valves, and combustion chambers clean. The difference between top-tier fuel and cheap gas might only be a few cents per gallon, but over time, That cheap gas leaves deposits that reduce fuel economy, cause rough running, and lead to expensive carbon cleaning services. Major brands like Shell, Chevron, Exxon, Costco, and many others meet top-tier standards. You can find a complete list of top-tier retailers online. I'm not saying you need to buy premium fuel unless your car requires it, but I am saying you should buy your regular fuel from stations that meet top-tier standards. Your engine will run cleaner, last longer, and give you better fuel economy over the long haul. Number 2. Don't ignore warning lights or unusual sounds. Your car is constantly trying to communicate with you through warning lights, sounds, and changes in how it drives. When that check engine light comes on, it's not just an annoyance, it's your car telling you something is wrong. Ignoring it can turn a $50 sensor replacement into a $3,000 catalytic converter job. The same goes for unusual sounds. A squealing noise when you brake could be worn pads that cost $100 to replace, or it could be metal-on-metal contact that's destroying your rotors. A clicking sound when you turn often indicates a failing CV, joint that costs $400 to $900 if it fails completely. A knocking sound from your engine could be anything from low oil to serious internal damage. The earlier you catch these problems, the cheaper they are to fix. Turn down your music once in a while, crack the windows and listen to your car. A healthy engine should sound smooth and consistent. Number 1. Keep a maintenance log and follow it religiously. This is the single most important habit that separates cars that last forever from cars that die early. You will not remember when you last changed your oil, replaced your spark plugs, or flushed your coolant. Nobody does. That's why you need to write it down. Use a notebook in your glove box, a spreadsheet on your computer, or a free app like Carfax Car Care, Drivo, or Simply Auto. Record every service, every part replacement, and every repair with the date and mileage. This ensures you never miss a scheduled maintenance item, helps you spot patterns that might indicate deeper problems, and dramatically increases your car's resale value, because buyers trust a car with documented maintenance history far more than one without any records. If you want your engine to last forever, treat maintenance like a religion and keep the records to prove it. So there you have it. 15 things that will make your engine last longer than you ever thought possible. These aren't secrets. They're just the basics that most people ignore because they're too busy, too cheap, or too trusting of what the dealership tells them. But now you know better. You know that manufacturer intervals are designed for warranties, not longevity. You know that small, cheap parts can prevent massive, expensive failures. And you know that the difference between an engine that dies at 150,000 miles and one that lives past 500,000 miles comes down to consistent, disciplined maintenance. I want to hear from you in the comments. What's the highest mileage you've ever put on an engine, and what do you think made the difference? Drop your answer below and let's start a conversation. Don't get ripped off. I'll see you in the next one.